Okay, so let's grab this last picture. I'm just going to take these pictures and download them for the course. There is I don't remember how I made this available to everyone, whether it was in an email or not, but there is a folder where I place all of these assets, and I can make those available to you if there's something that you want to utilize to practice with. And this we'll draw from these assets in what we're working on today. So let me just transfer these last two over, these rooms, so they're in that folder, and then they'll be available to you later. If there's something you're missing, please just reach out to me in an email, and I'm happy to get it for you. So, all right. So today I would like to start off by looking at some product development. Sometimes, and this is increasingly more the case, but companies will come to us and they'll say, we've got this product concept. Now, they don't have the actual product yet, but they have the concept, and they want to push the concept and see if there's some traction on the concept before they even have a physical product. So before they manufacture 10,000 or 100,000 of whatever the product is, they want to put it out there and see if people try to buy it. And if they try to buy it, then they'll refund their money and say thanks, but we'll give you 50% off when we're back in stock or something like that. You'll see this technique used occasionally. Well, when they don't have an actual product, they'll come to us and say, hey, can you create or generate or render a product for us so that we can sell it on Amazon or some other e-commerce platform? And so I'm going to go through the process of showing you some of the deeper aspects of Photoshop. Now, the techniques that I'm using here are not the only way to accomplish what I'm doing. That's the beauty of Photoshop, is that there are multiple ways to do just about anything you want to do. So this is a way, and this is my preferred way of doing what I'm going to do. As we discussed last time, I try to take approaches that are non-destructive. So a non-destructive approach keeps track of the original state of every photo that I'm using. A destructive state, cuts it out, pops it onto a new layer, and now I don't have the background anymore, right? If I don't have the background anymore, then I've taken a destructive approach, meaning I can't get back what I changed about that photo. I like to take non-destructive approaches so that 3 months down the line, when my client comes back to me and says, hey, we thought we wanted that to be a green lid, but now we want it to be a blue lid because we're rebranding and we need to change out our logo. All I have to do is go into the right part of my file and switch it over to a blue lid. Okay? So we're going to play around a little bit with what I have here in this to show you blending, to show you color modes, to show you the full capabilities of the layers palette, to show you Photoshop big documents and the benefit they are to the process. This is actually a friend of mine's company, Lily Herbs. So this is an actual product that is available, that is produced, and I'm going to use it just to show you an example of some of the things that you can do. Know that this doesn't just apply to products. You can use this for pets or humans or for rooms. These same principles will apply. Okay? All right. The first thing you're going to notice here is that I've got 2 different layers in my layers palette over here. So last time we talked about the different palettes. I've got a lot of my palettes cataloged down here, down the side. But of all my palettes, my layers palette I use, it's kind of like a kitchen. I'll use my refrigerator 80 times for every 1 time that I use my oven. Right? And that's kind of how the layers palette is. I'll use it 80 times for every 1 time that I use my brushes palette. Okay? So I do encourage you to become extremely familiar with layers. When I began in Photoshop back in 2000, layers weren't yet a part of it. Actually, it was 98. Layers weren't yet a part of it. It was kind of like Microsoft Paint. You could still cut things out and merge them together, but it was quite precarious. And when they invented the first layers, wow, did it change Photoshop. And now we've got literally unlimited layers. So the file gets bigger and bigger and bigger. after it grows beyond a gigabyte, then they'll no longer allow you to save it as a PSD, which is a Photoshop document. After that point, it has to be a PSB, which is a big file, and it saves the layers in it in different chunks, and it has its own methodology of how to save that. But PSB and PSD, for all intents and purposes, are identical to each other. They're just a layered file. It's just the PSB is much bigger than the PSD. And increasingly, as screen resolutions get tighter and tighter, pixel dimensions get bigger and bigger, bandwidth grows, then images grow as well. So these days, we're typically dealing with images that are somewhere in the 2,000 to 3,000 pixel range. That's an optimal size for product photos or for Instagram photos. You want to stay well above 1,000. If you're below 1,000, then you're going to start getting pixelation. You're going to start getting blurry or gummy images, and I can show you an example of that. Well, you've all seen gummy images. So if you have questions on any of these terms, just let me know, and we'll show you examples. All right. So in these, you see this little icon that's down in the corner of both bottles? This tells me that this is a smart object. And you can see that when I roll over it, it says Smart Object Thumbnail. Okay? What that means is if I double click on that, it's going to open that layer or that image into its own image. So I went from nhbottlesample.psb here over to lemonbalmextract.psb because that layer was named lemon balm extract. See how that is? So it's just taken that item and it's opened it up into its own layered file. And that's what a smart object is. That's all it is. Now, that's not the only way to access it. This is just one way, but I just want to show you that within here, I have now 5 smart objects. Okay? These 5 smart objects show the same bottle from different perspectives, and since I'm doing a product product rendering for a client, they need to show this bottle from all 3 sides. Right? So that they can see the front, they can see the directions, and they can see the supplement facts. And I'll show you how to do this very thing. In addition to that, do I have 2 fronts? Maybe these are identical. Yep, I don't need 2 fronts. So I can get rid of one of those. And then I have a 3-pack, right? So I have the single. Now, if I click into the 3-pack, for example, it's going to open up another Photoshop document. So you see here in the tabs, I've got additional tabs that are opening. And this one is layered with, once again, 3 more smart objects. You see how we're nesting these inside of one another. We're going deeper, deeper into the rabbit hole. Don't get lost in the rabbit hole. If you understand the principle here, then you'll understand kind of the direction that things are going. So these are 3 of the exact same product, and they actually share the same PSB, but I have 3 versions of them in this file here, but 2 of them are smaller than the front one, just to show that depth, right? So what'll happen here, I'm going to change one of them and watch what happens as it trickles up the line, okay? So I'm going to take this one here, and I'm going to say, oh, okay, here I am, this is my bottle. I'm going to change my color from green to blue. All right, my lid color is now blue. It was green, and when I save that, now when I come to the next tab up, all of my lids are blue because they were all drawing from the same PSB file. Does that make sense? Now, it's important to know this because later I'm going to show you, if I want each of my files to be different, I have to create a different root file from them to draw from. Okay, so all 3 of them are the same, and if I hit save here, now I'm going to come back here before I hit save, and you're going to see here that change has not gone up the line yet. It's not gone to this image, and that's because I didn't hit save in this second file that I had it saved in. Once I save it here, then it'll go up the line and make that change here. Now it's changed in this smart object that's in the line, and if I hit save here, then it'll change it on the next. If I don't hit save here, then it's not going to change it in my original file, which is this one that I started. Meaning if I'm going to close down these 3 that I had, I'm going to hit don't save. When I don't save it, and I open this file up again, back to my PSB, nothing has changed on that image because now I'm drawing from its original root that was unchanged because I didn't save it. Does that make sense? So not only can we go deeper and more sophisticated with these images in order to make them non-destructive, but we do have to account for and save all the way up. Now, that's not the only way to go deeper. I just wanted to show you the principle of that as we went. On a root folder, it will then reflect it on the one above, but until I save that one, it won't reflect it on the one above that. It's like Inception, right? Like you got your deeper dreams, and whatever happens in the deeper dream will impact you up the line. So anyway, another way that we can access this, I'm going to close this file, don't save, is over here, I'm going to click on colon cleanse, and I'm just going to right click on the layer, and one of my objects is convert to layers. It's going to take my smart object, it's going to undo the smart aspect, but open it up as a layered object now. So if I convert that to smart object, you see that it now converted it to a layered object. So smart object goes away, but I still have everything in its layered form. And then if I come in here and I say, oh, I want to also convert this to layers, then boom, it converts that to layers, and the smart object goes away. But you can see how once you've created something and it's the way you like it, converting it to a smart object is actually a really nice way to just kind of close it and contain it, and contain it just so that it's organized, right, into its own little thing. It's better than layers. It's unchanging until you decide to do something, until you open it up or change the root or anything like that. Any questions so far regarding the smart objects? So once I develop something into a smart object, and I'm going to go into one of these labels and show you that you can make changes that will then be kind of like pre-recorded for other changes that you want to make. That's going to sound odd until I show you, but just know that a smart object, it holds a series of actions that you took. It kind of captures them in a state, right? And as I go back through my PSB folders, I can, as I add my elements, I can save that, and it will do all of the actions that led to that final state of it. Like the color was just one thing that I wanted to show you. I'm gonna open colon cleanse up here, and I'm going to put a new label in, so that you can see how it's going to remember everything, but it's going to do it for a different label. So if I have a series of 12 products, for example, and I got one of them right where I want it, now to replicate that and do it for 12 different products, it saves me hours and hours and hours because I've already built out the processes. All I have to do is duplicate, go back down the line, switch out the root file, and save up, and I've got a new product line with all new labels. So now that I've kind of explained what I mean, I'm going to actually do it so you can kind of see it happen. Okay? All right, so I'm going to take my colon cleanse hero here, and I'm going to double click on it so that I open it up into a PSB file, and I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to see here that in this folder I have all the elements that I need in order. Oh, here's my label file right here. In this colon cleanse label, above it I have, here's a line, right, that's over a shine that I put on it that's over the top. Here's some darkening that I put as it goes around the label, just to give dimension to my label. So I have kind of this series of effects that I've placed on it, but I've also wrapped my label around the bottle with a mesh tool. So if I double click on this colon cleanse, you'll see that I just have a square here. If I double click on this one, you'll see that I have the full label. Okay, so in one, I've just got the only part that I want to wrap around the bottle. I don't need all of this extra stuff. It's just extra that gets in the way as I'm trying to digitally wrap something around the bottle. But this one, you'll see it's not a smart object. It's just a background object, meaning this is the bottom of my nested objects for this. If I take another file here, I'm going to open up this folder here. All right, we're going to change this and call this Fantastic Product, just for the sake of, so you can see what's happening here. And we are going to change the color. Let's just change our color to, I'm going to need to go into my layers. Oh, it's going to be in my, yeah. I'll drag something in. In fact, that's what I'm going to do here in just a second. I'm going to bring in a new element. It's going to put it on a new layer. I'm going to name it because as you're working with thousands of layers, eventually you want to know what each layer is. Okay, so I'm making some minor changes to this just so that you can see the difference between this and the other label. So we're going to go with a brown top instead of a green top. And I'm going to export this as a PDF just for the sake of, and we're going to call it Fantastic Product. Okay. Oops. I'm exporting as a JPEG. Let's export it as a PDF. Fantastic Product. Okay, here we go. This was an actual label design for the bottle, built to size for the printer so the labels could be printed, and then the client comes back to me and says, hey, can you take that label that we designed? In your case, it may be a logo, or it may be a banner that you designed, right? And you want to use it in a digital space now, right? So in this case, he says, can you take my label and put it on a bottle and allow me to sell that bottle on Amazon? And the answer, of course, is yes. So this is the process of how. So I have saved that. Let's now go to Photoshop. I have my folder up here. I'm going to find my Fantastic Product PDF. I'm going to just drag it in. Did you see how I did that? I just dragged it into the folder, and you see that it's not to size yet, so I'm going to go ahead and make that size. Right now I'm on a Mac, and I'm holding down my Option key, which means that it will pull from the center and go exactly the same in all directions, and it'll snap to the edge. Okay. If I don't hold down Option, then it will pull one way or the other. If I grab one of the corners, it'll just go up from there. Right? If I grab another corner, it'll go from there. So if you want it to grow all at the same time, that Option or Alt, if you're on a PC, Option or Alt is the keystroke that you'll want to do to make that happen. Now you'll see as I move this around that I get this pink line occasionally. That's a guide that really helps you just find the center. And that's useful if you're still trying. And if I go up this way, you see I can center it in both places so that if I then want to move everything all at once again, I'm doing so from a centered position. When I hit Enter, it saves it, and you'll see that over here in the Layers palette, it saved it as a smart object again. Now this smart object is not a raster object, meaning it's not a Photoshop document. It is it's a vector element, which if I click on this, I believe it's going to open it up in either Illustrator, it's going to open it up in my PDF browser. So where I can, if you've got Adobe Acrobat, you can make text changes and other things like that. Anyway, all of those changes can be made in here if I wanted to, and then it will save it once again once I save that, it'll save it to my Photoshop document. So the smart objects is really, really fantastic. Now here's the next best part. So I'm going to, because this is a JPEG, I need to make sure that it resaves as a JPEG for my root. And a JPEG is a flattened, meaning no layers, version of a document. That's part of its compression. So you lose all of the additional layers in a JPEG. But in this case, since I'm replacing, that's okay. I'm going to flatten, which you would right-click and flatten image right here. For me, I've made a keystroke of F2. So I would hit F2, and that would flatten it. It would compress it all down into a single layer. And it is lost. As soon as I close this document, any other layers are lost if I've flattened those into one layer. If I instead have saved them all together into a smart object and save it as some other format, like a PSD or a PSB, then I can forever access those multiple layers after that. now it's raster. Raster means pixels. It's made out of pixels, chunky blocks of pixels, so that when I look at this super close, you can see the individual pixels there, the individual squares that everything is made out of. Vector is lines, and it just remembers the shape of everything like a font, and you can make it as big as this room, and it still looks exactly the same as if I made it as small as a pinhead. All right, so when I save this and close it, you'll see that one layer up, it retained the fantastic product with the brown header, right? So I'm going to save this, and one layer up, you'll see that it has now replaced my label with fantastic product wrapped around my bottle, because it remembered all the actions associated with that. Now I'm going to bring that one in, and I'm going to wrap it once, just so you can see how I would wrap it once the first time, because since I've already done this, you would email me and say, how did you wrap it the first time if I didn't show you? So I'm going to double click on that again. I'm going to just I'm going to copy this and bring this over into, okay, so let me come outside of my mask. All right, I've got a layer. You see this black and white square that's on my layer? That's a mask that just means that everything inside of that can be seen and everything in the black area cannot be seen. And that's how you, so if it's outside, you can see that my square here goes beyond the limits of the boundaries of the bottle itself. If instead I pull it inside my masked area, you'll see that it looks, well, it fits in there, but it's flat on a round bottle. It doesn't have that dimension that you would expect to see on a real bottle if you were looking at it, right? So in this case, I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to make it into a smart object. Okay, I wouldn't have copied it like that because I made it non-destructive. I got rid of the smart object. I would instead, I'm going to take the size here that I have of this, and on this I'm going to add a mask, which is just to the size of the boundaries by clicking on the mask icon down here at the bottom. Let me double click on my product so it's above the, so right here, this is the mask. Once I've made the mask, then I'm going to make it a smart object again. And now it's, you see that it's a square, but it's a smart object square rather than the destructive one that I did before. I'm gonna compare it just so you can see the two. I have the two here. You'll see that the one has a smart object symbol and the other one does not. This one is just the square. It's been destroyed. I can't go deeper now and make any changes to that layer. So you don't necessarily want to use that one. It's not going to be useful to you. So I'm gonna delete that. We're going to make all of our changes to this smart object version of my label because I can go deeper with it. Okay, so once I get it in place where I want it, I'm gonna hit Command T, or in image, no, edit, no. Let's see, what's the slow way of doing things? Let's see, I never do it the slow way, so it's a free transform is what I'm trying to do here. Oh, there it is. Edit, free transform. I unfortunately for 20 years have memorized all the keystrokes, so I don't think of the menu way of doing these. Yeah, so free transform is what you're trying to do. When it brings it into this state, it allows you to modify it freely. However, in order to get the mesh, in order to wrap something in kind of a mesh sort of way, you want to click on this little guy up here, which is the mesh tool. You'll see that it divides it naturally into a 9-part grid. This is useful, well, for many reasons. If I grab just one of these points here and drag it up, you'll see here that I can change the, well, I can do a lot of things. Right now I'm keeping it pretty simple. I'm going to take the mask off for just a second, and I'm going to bring my sides in. Oops, I'm going to hold down Shift in order to keep it from doing, you'll see how it tried to size it all together at the same time. I'm going to hold down Shift to keep it from doing that. And then I'm going to go back into this, and I'm going to expand out the middle so that I have more in my middle section here. Where it would show more than now. Fussing with the tool, that's nothing anybody can teach you. That comes from playing with it and just getting good with it. So I do recommend that you play with the product and that you get good at using it. Now, I've skewed it. Oops, I've skewed it here. I'm going to hit enter, which is going to lock it into that. But you'll see here that it still looks flat, even though I've now warped it. And that's because I don't have my darks and my lights and my shines on there, right? So in order to do that, I would bring, for example, for my darks, I would, in my tool down here at the bottom, I would come in to a curve layer. Curves are awesome. Curves, if you ever used levels, curves are levels and way more. But in this case, I want to make my lights darker. I'm going to drag them down. You see how it just darkens everything that's underneath of it? Right, so everything that I can see. Now, because it's still within my mask up here, that's why it's only affecting the label area. It's not affecting my bottle, because I've masked off just the area that I want to work with. And I will show you how to mask that off. Some of this I'll go in kind of a circular path. All right, so once I get it kind of the darkness that I want to show, then I'm going to take my my white and I'm going to turn it black. You can do this by inversing it. Inversing is Command I. I'm sure that is image. Oh, great. I don't know the slow way of doing. What's that? You know, I'm just going to have to ask you to take notes on the keystrokes, because I'm sorry. So Command I is going to inverse that. It's going to flip it, right? And you can look these up on Google or on YouTube as well. There's tutorials on any of the specific things that I'm doing. There's going to be 100 tutorials on YouTube. Invert or Control I if you're on a PC. So Command and Control are identical. Option and Alt are identical. They just won't agree, those two companies. So if they would get along with each other, we'd have something universal, which I'd love. All right, so when it's black here, I'm going to now take a brush and I'm going to reveal some of the side, but in kind of a blurry way. Okay, so I'm going to take a brush, which is over here in my toolbar. B is the command for it. And it already has, if I were to right click anywhere, you can see here that my hardness is 0, meaning it's a gradient, it's a blurry brush. I want that because I want it to be kind of a graded effort. Now I can just drag, whoops, wrong color. Okay, over here in the colors here, we've got black and white. Whatever's on top is what your brush is going to do. Whatever's on the bottom is what your eraser will do. The brush and the eraser are opposite to each other. Okay, so if I were to take my brush, and I can click on this arrow and switch those at any time, or I can just hit the stroke X. X does the same thing. Okay, so I make it white. I'm painting white on black, and everywhere that I paint white, it gives this. It reveals the darker version of that bottle that I had before, right? Which gives the dimension that I wanted to the outsides of that bottle. Now, I can just drag with my mouse, click and drag if I want to, but it may not be straight, see, because I can drag anywhere that I want. If I want to make that line perfectly straight, then I'll click above, and then I'll hold Shift, go straight below it, and it will draw between my two lines. Right? So I click, hold down Shift, click again, and it'll draw a straight line between my 2 points. And if I didn't get that quite straight, I'll back up, Control Z or Command Z, right? And then I'll do it again so that I can just get that nice and straight. Now the nice thing about doing it on a mask is it's non-destructive, meaning this is just a layer and I'm just showing things, and I can paint back. I can switch to X, I can go back to black, and I can paint away. You know, I can paint away what I've painted in. I can paint anything white black, and I can paint anything black white. So by doing so, I'm just revealing or concealing. Right? White reveals, black conceals. Then if I want to do the same kind of a thing, and this is just an effect layer, so it's just happening to this layer, and I can turn that layer on and off at any time. It's just sitting over the top of my visuals. And if I want it to only apply to this label only, then I would hover over this line between the two layers here and hold down Alt or Option, and you see how it shows this little square and this arrow. If I click on that, then it ties it only to this object. Meaning if I show anything else below it, that effect will not be, so if I hide this layer, that effect is not applied to anything other than the layer that I'm on. Okay? All right, so, oops, open those back up. I don't need to tie it per se. Okay, now I want to do the same thing, but this had some shine on it, right? And the shine was, I'm going to hide this for just a moment. The shine, it's a little stronger at the top of the label than it is at the bottom of the label. So I'm going to start off with having a crisp shape, and I'm going to blur it just a little bit, and then I'm going to have it fade away to nothing as we go down in order to simulate this actual shine that I have on the bottle. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to use my pen tool. This is another must. I highly recommend that if you're going to get good at anything in Photoshop, learn the layers palette and learn the pen tool. These two are when other forms of selection fail you, the pen tool will allow you to get absolutely precise and perfect with your selection. You can get pixel perfect, meaning you can do it you can divide one pixel from one other pixel if you needed to get that perfect. Okay, so I'm going to come up here and I'm just going to, I have my pen tool set on path. It's going to make a vector path for me, and then I'm going to allow that path to take on some characteristics. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply draw a rectangle. Yeah, I'm going to draw a rectangle. So there is my path. I just click, 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 click. Now, the nice thing about a pen tool is, and I'm going to show this in a bit here, but I can take and use what I call handlebars. I don't even know what they're actually called. I can use these handlebars to steer the curvature of that line, right? And I can make this pen tool follow all sorts of curves, and I can get it exact or close, depending on what your objective is. Sometimes you just want to get it close. And at any time, I can come back in here and I can edit each individual one so that I can make it more precise. Once it's there in place, I can add to and take away from the line. But this is part of using the pen tool and learning how to change the lines. We could probably have a whole course just on vector, if we ever want to continue these, on vector use. This is an Illustrator tool. The pen tool is, that they've brought into Photoshop and incorporate in here. But if you can use the pen tool here, you can use it in Premiere Pro, and you can use it in Illustrator, right? And you can use it in InDesign, and it's useful in all of the softwares for selection. Okay, I'm going to delete that selection. Now all the selections are saved here in this little paths palette. So I've made the one selection here, but I don't actually have to do anything with here, because if I come back down to my effects here, to my adjustment layers, I can click on that and I say, I want a solid color. I want a solid color in that space, in my path, because it was already activated. It's going to make it blue. I'm going to say, okay, now, do I want it blue? No. But it doesn't really matter what color you make it, because all you have to do is double click on the layer and choose the color you want from 16 million colors, or you can sample anything from the bottle so that you can get exact shades and exact colors of other elements that are in your picture. If you're doing interior design and you want to have a color theme on certain elements, you'll select those elements, put one of these color fields over the top, and then you're going to apply a blend mode in order to just turn them that color. We'll be doing that here shortly, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so let's just say that I want this white, because that is what I want, and we're going to put one of our blend modes on. In this case, let me get my label back. We're going to come up here in this little bar here, which is our blend modes, and we're going to say, I would like to put a soft light on it. Now you can see that a soft light makes it transparent, and yet you can see that it's still there, but it's a little too hard still, right? Now, I can put a blur on this. Because it's a smart object, I can put a blur on this, which is filter, blur, right here. I'm going to just do a Gaussian blur. And I can say, yes, convert it to a smart object. And I'm going to tell it to blur it maybe 3 points. Just a little bit of blurriness, something similar to what's on that bottle up above, right? It's a little blurred, but not a lot blurred. So I'm going to say 3, yeah, that's good. Hit OK, and now you can see that all of that is saved right here in this smart filter, Gaussian blur. I can click on it at any time. I can adjust that and say, no, I want it to be 2. No, I want it to be 4. All that is non-destructive and can be changed back at any time. Okay, so 3 is fine. Let's make it 3. We're going to hit OK. Now I want to come in and I want to shave away some of the bottom so it has this gradation here. So I'm going to put a mask on it, which it makes it white, meaning everything is revealed. I'm going to take my brush tool again here with black as my color over here, as you can see. And as I brush over it, it's going to gradate it. It's going to grade it so that it starts off as fully transparent, going to partially transparent, right? And it will become what looks like a realistic shine, particularly when we get the whole thing put together. I can now hold down Option or Alt, and look what it does to my arrow key. So I'm using my move arrow right now. When I hold down Option or Alt, it gives me this double arrow effect. If I drag, it just creates a duplicate of that exact item, right? And so I can have once I've created the shine once, I can just duplicate it, and now I've got the shine in both places. So I've got my shine, my dark areas, which is my dodging and my burning. That's the kind of the technique that they call it in photography. And that gives me the dimension that I want to my bottle. Now we're going to back up for just a moment, and we're going to say, well, what if I did all of this, but I don't have it contained within the area that I want? What if I don't have this mask yet over my label? And I'm going to say, okay, well, let's say that we start off with a picture of another bottle, right? In this case, I would come up and I would use my pen tool and I would draw over the area that I want to mask. Click in the middle and, oops, I'm going to click in the middle and drag. You'll see how it bends my line. And the only way to kind of understand the way that the lines work is to really play around with it. Play around with it enough, be frustrated with it enough that you start to understand the way that the pen tool behaves, that those handlebars behave. All right, so I've got this area here, and it falls right over the top of the area that I want to contain. So then when I come up to I'm going to delete just the mask. I come up to all of my elements that comprise the label, and I say, I'm going to come into my paths palette here, roll over the icon here, and hold down Command. And you'll see that when I do, it gives me this selection option. When I click on that, it says, oh, okay, I've just turned your path into a selection. What do you want to do with it? And then I'll tell it, oh, let's make a mask here. Now all of those elements, whatever's in the white area, right, is revealed, and whatever's outside of that is concealed, whatever's in the black area. And if I did it the opposite, no big deal. You just hit Command I, and now everything that's outside of that is revealed, which of course is not what I wanted, but you may do sometimes. You may get the opposite of what you're intending. The opposite is just as good as the original, because you can just invert it, and then you're good to go. Okay? So I've masked in my label. I've placed shading on it. I've showed you how to bring in an object from another program, to copy and to drag it and drop it into place, to transform it and form it around something. And once it's transformed and formed around something, if I want to now bring in a different label, right, I can bring it into my root file and save it up the line, and it will have done all of these effects that I've just done to this. It'll have done them all already. So there is some time. What I'll often do in the creative space is I'll say there is a template fee. The template fee is $200 for me to build the first item, and then there's a variation fee, and then it'll be $15 for each item after that, right? So that if they come to me and they've got 50 bottles that they need me to design, but they're all identical except for, maybe the name on it or something like that, then they'll pay the template fee once, and then that $15 fee for each additional version of the product that they have, just to pay for the processing of going through and then formatting it all. Now, as I showed you last time, once we've got these elements into place and we go up the line and we have, boom, right here, we save everything into nested products. Actually, I would probably do it in this one right here. I'm going to save that as I've got keystrokes for these so that I can quickly make them smart or quickly make them layered. That's something you'd have to do manually, but it's easy to make manual keystrokes. I can show you that. Email me if that's something you need to learn how to do. From here, if I open this one up as well, so that I have all of these open, I can take all of my products now that I've created, and all the ones that I select, I can then export as individual files. It'll format them all the same and save them as a JPEG or a PNG, compressed, ready for online use, so that I'm keeping track of it all in my various layers. Let's say that I'm doing an Instagram campaign, right? I can build all of my posts in the same canvas size so that I can have day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, and keep all of my February files all together in one PSB. And then I can take the whole group. What I recommend to my clients, for example, is if we're doing a social media campaign, let's build all of your posts on one day, 30 days in advance. We know all of the posts that we're going to do in March. Let's build them all today so that you can review them. We can make sure that everything's the way you want. We can anticipate holidays and other things that are coming up. We build them all in one big file like that and export them all together in their format for when we're actually going to upload them. And then they're identical in terms of their sizing. We can see that there's a pattern, and we're using the same color schemes. We're using, the same fonts. We're maintaining control over all of those different elements. So you'd take all of those different layers and you'd export them all at the same time using this export tool. In this case, all of these would export. You can see the size that it would be. This first one here, I accidentally made a PNG. All the rest of them were a JPEG, and look at the size difference. 1.7 megabytes versus 480 kilobytes. So if I come up here and I say, okay, I've got them all selected, I want to make them all JPEG, now it'll take that first one and make it 430 kilobytes. And I can see before I ever even save it, if this is going to fit within what I'm trying to do. Sometimes websites are particular about the size that an image has to be below. Generally, if you're doing Google ads or some kind of advertisement, your banner has to be below a certain size in kilobytes in order for them to accept it. So anyway, once it's the way I like it, I click export, choose the file, the folder that I'm going to put it in, and off they go. They're exported like that. Okay?